It is now time for our weekly political segment, Texas Face Off. Joining me this morning is Ed Scruggs with Texas Gun Sense and Matt Mackowiak, chairman of the Travis County Republican Party. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you.
I mean, I think obviously the big thing on a lot of people's minds is what happened in Midland, Odessa. More and more details coming out about the fact that this shooter shouldn't have been able to purchase a gun. That's according to the governor. Also, when we look at the fact that, several people called to report this gentleman, he called the FBI himself. At first, overall thoughts on this particular mass shooting, and Ed, we'll start with you.
It's a nightmare coming on the heels of El Paso. Different because of its random nature and that it lasted for hours. It terrified a whole region, basically. So it had impacts all the way around the state. I think it's going to change the conversation again.
And Matt, what are your overall thoughts?
Yeah, part of, I think, the important steps now is just to find out exactly what happened and how this happened. I saw a report that he'd failed a background check. Obviously, he had a criminal record. I saw part of his criminal record occurred when he was 18, so it may have been expunged, because he was a minor. So there are all kinds of questions about that. I think we all want to know how he got a gun if he wasn't able to legally acquire one. And so as soon as we find that, we can think about other public policy steps that can help try to prevent this kind of thing. It seems to me we're starting to see instances where shooters want to let law enforcement know before they do it, even if it's only a matter of minutes. I don't know what kind of capability we have in cities and counties and across the state, even nationally, to let everyone who needs to know that immediately when there's a call like that goes out. You could have been pinging his cell phone, tracking him once he made a threat like that to the FBI. I don't know how quickly they're able to interact with other government entities. So there's a lot to look at here, and I know the governor wants to take action.
What's particularly interesting, I think, about this is when we had the El Paso shooting, both of you, I've interviewed you both separately, and you both said, well, we're just going to have to see if this shooting, if El Paso was enough to move the conversation, right? That if the reaction would be something substantial as far as changes in policies. And now we have this one. Do you feel like this is enough where maybe lawmakers will start saying, okay, we need to start looking at some different forms of policy?
Look, there's absolutely a desire to prevent these things from happening. The challenge is a lot of the gun control proposals that have been put out wouldn't have prevented many, if not all, of these mass shootings. If you banned so-called AR-15s tomorrow, semi-automatic weapons, there's still tens of millions of them out in circulation. If you want to do mandatory buybacks, well, that's effectively confiscation, because what if someone doesn't want to sell their gun back? I mean, there are so many issues. Gun control is sort of an easy bumper sticker to throw out there, these kind of poll-tested phrases that may appear popular. But when you dig into what they actually mean and whether they would actually prevent mass shootings, I think that's where the trouble comes.
So what can be done?
Well, again, I think that the important thing here is to really dig into exactly how these things happen. Were guns lawfully acquired? If they weren't, then we need to enforce our laws better, and I think we can always do a better job in that regard. Did the background check system fail? If so, that needs to be improved. It was improved last year on a bipartisan basis. So, look, the governor's already conducted 2 roundtables around the state. He has a 3rd coming up. He has a domestic terrorism task force that he's formed and has started meeting. So, look, I don't have any doubt the state of Texas is going to take action. It may not be till the 2021 legislative session that happens. I do think the governor will do some things through the executive branch.
Ed, you have a long list of ideas of things that you think that they can do. First, do you think that this particular shooting will move that conversation forward?
I sure hope so. I know it's intensifying the conversation. People are panicked, they're scared, and the emotions range from anger to hopelessness. Some folks are just frustrated, we haven't done anything. Others are throwing their hands up in the air saying, we can't stop this. Neither one of those things is acceptable. I think when it comes to actions the state can take, we just don't know yet because we haven't really taken any action in this regard yet. But this came so closely after El Paso. So let's see what the government, what the governor and lieutenant governor and others come up with. I would hope, though, the background check system in the roundtable discussions, we discussed at length how poor the system is, how many holes there are in it, how you can fail a background check in so many legal ways in Texas to get around that, to get a weapon. there was consensus that we need to do something on that. So that's a number one mandatory step we really should address. But also red flag laws. It may not have come into play per se in El Paso, but here in Odessa, we have reports that the shooter who lived in a tin shack with a dirt floor was shooting animals in the middle of the night, confronted his neighbor with his AR-15. That's a case where there were many red flags. So I would hope that the governor and some of our state lawmakers could reconsider some of their existence to red flag laws. We call them extreme risk protective orders, because we really do believe in the long run it could prevent some of these and also prevent suicides and some domestic abuse situations as well.
Yeah, after that first roundtable discussion, the governor said something not as extreme as a red flag law is something he would like to see, but he's open to something.
Well, we hope so. I think that one of the issues at play here is the movement that the majority coalition in the legislature will allow on this. The coalition has been formed basically in an absolutist way on gun issues for a long, long time. I sense that some state officials really want to do something, but the question is the political question. How much room will they be given to move? And they can push for movement, but everyone has to be together and play ball. That's the frustrating part in all this, because it affects public safety and people want action, but they need to understand that everyone needs to get their ducks in a row and do that before they can act. Let's hope that happens.
And some people would argue it all depends on the voters and what voters want to see happen and how they will reward or punish these lawmakers in the next election. Obviously, this is something we could talk about all day, but that's our time, folks. So thank you both for joining us this morning. We appreciate it. You can watch this on KVUE.com after the newscast if you missed this interview. We'll be right back.